Good morning. And thank you, Jody and Betty, for that prelude and for your amazing musical talent. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. When we say welcome, we truly mean that one and all are welcome. Our denomination is unique because every Unitarian Universalist has the right to develop a personal philosophy of life without being told what to believe. We can learn from all philosophies and religions, and also from science and the arts. We explore important life issues in a caring community united by shared values rather than by shared theological opinions. And no matter what we believe about theology or philosophy, we try to live a good life and leave the world a better than we found it. So again, welcome to all of you here in person and to those watching online. Thank you for finding the time to be here. My name is Carrie Link, and it is my honor to be the service leader for this morning. And as such, I have just a couple of housekeeping items. Please make sure your cell phones, tablets, watches, or any other noise-making items are off for the duration of the service. And secondly, if you have trouble hearing, just raise your hand and we'll make any adjustments that we need to. If you are comfortable with our custom of asking visitors or anyone who hasn't been here in a while to stand and introduce yourselves, we invite you to do so now so that we can welcome you more personally. Please tell us where you're from and what may have brought you here this morning. Any visitors? Yes.
I'm not exactly a visitor. I've been here many, many times. I'm Judy Corbet from Second Unitarian in Chicago. And I'm actually up here this weekend, just for the weekend, for the memorial service of my dear friend Liz Fisher, who actually introduced me to Door County in 1960.
Oh, welcome. Yes.
James Traeger. I'm a retired entomologist and field biologist, and my wife and I live a little ways west of St. Louis, Missouri, and spend a couple weeks up here every summer. I'm also, as I was explaining earlier to this gentleman, I'm a born and raised Unitarian. So young, and that's wavered back and forth all my life.
Welcome. Yes.
Hi, I'm Jamie Henry, a member of this congregation, but some of you may remember last week I introduced Caroline and David Taylor, who are the two children of Helen Taylor, one of our founders. And David announced, I asked them how they were still related to Unitarianism, and Caroline said she goes in her town of Nacogdoches, and David said that the congregation is too small for him in Beaumont. He listens every week here.
Oh.
So could we say hello to David?
Hello, David. That's great. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, I'm Jim Wilbur. Let me introduce Kay Greger. Kay is a member of the Olivia Brown UU Church in Racine for many years now, and real active there. She's out visiting. She's going to a course of declaring starting today. And this is C. Daniel, my wife, and I'm Jim Wilbur. We are longtime members of UU Church in Racine at Olivia Brown for 32 years. Moved there from Philadelphia. We were members out there, and we've been coming up to Door County the entire time we lived in Wisconsin. About 10 years ago, we bought a condo and have been coming up more regularly, but now we just bought a house in Fish Creek and we're here.
Well, welcome. Okay, well, thank you. And I hope that you have sign the guest book, and if you have not, it's still out there. And please join us for coffee and conversation right after the service and before the talkback. Coffee will be in the gathering room, which is just across the entranceway. And the talkback will be held here over in this area. If there is anyone, it doesn't sound like it, but if there is anyone who would like to know more about Unitarian Universalism, or in general, or our fellowship in particular, please feel free to ask anyone. And the people with yellow name tags are board members, and they'd be happy to bend your ear. There is also written information in the entranceway, and we have an informative website, uufdc.org. Just a bit ago, I mentioned the talkback, and that is a casual time for meeting with our speaker to ask questions or clarify anything. It is held after coffee, and the signal to begin it will be the chimes sounding again. Our speaker this morning is Estella Lauder, and you can read on the front of your order of service some of her extensive background, and we are fortunate that she is here this morning, and fortunate that she is also a member of this fellowship. Thank you, Estella. If you look on the back of your order of service, you will find the announcements listed. Because announcements are an important part of our community, we invite others at this time, but we ask that you keep them as brief as possible. And Dick will bring the microphone to you if there are any announcements. Wow. Okay, you're off the hook. We will now have the chalice lighting. And Vicki will light the chalice while I read these words. We light this chalice remembering the freedoms long established in our nation. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom from the establishment of religion. We light this chalice, honoring those who exemplify protecting those freedoms. Librarians, booksellers, teachers, authors, journalists. We light the chalice so that by its light we may read all the books. Books with archaic language, books with offensive material, books which affirm the diversity of the human race, books which normalize our varied sexualities, books which share multi-dimensional perspectives of history. May we bask in the glow of its light this morning as we illuminate, brighten, and radiate because of the books we have read and the books we have yet to read. Please stand as you are able in body or spirit for hymn number 291, and then remain standing for the unison affirmation followed by the doxology. we gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate the very committee, those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. Please be seated. We will now have this morning's offering. In the words of Arthur Foote, freely have we received of gifts that minister to our needs of body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Joys and concerns. If you have a joy you would like to share, which has brought you happiness, or a concern which, when shared, may help unburden you, please raise your hand and Dick will bring the mic to you. And as is written in the order of service, please do not share about another person if you have not received permission to do so.
Previously, several weeks previous, there were so many announcements that I didn't say this, but I just want everybody to know that if you're at the Door County Memorial Hospital Clinic in Sister Bay and you run into a nurse called Amanda, that's my granddaughter. And she and her husband and family of 2 kids and a dog named Babs have moved back here permanently from Pennsylvania.
Wow.
So we're very happy to have them, even though my house is pretty busy these days.
Yeah. Thanks, Helene.
Hi, Gail Anderson here. I was in the hospital for about 6 days with a bacterial infection that is sometimes carried by a deer tick. Now that's the bad news. The good news is that when we got home, Nick and I were greeted by the loving arms of the caring committee. And Trish and Cindy and Sandra Dirks brought food and encouragement and support, and Nick and I will be eternally grateful. It was just a real blessing. So thank you, you.
We're glad that you're okay.
So maybe this could have been under announcements, but I can't often say that I am joyful when I go to the Pig to go shopping. However, last Sunday, I emptied our money for food bank that was reactivated, and I got to spend $130 on food to help others. So, once again, if you choose not to do the shopping, Jane and I will do it for you. So there's a basket for goodies, but there is also a little canister for your money. So thank you very much.
And thank you.
So you know that I'm so thankful to be here. I was in a conversation with a dear friend yesterday, and his mother recently died at the age of 99. My aorta replacement is good for 500 years, so. And Doug said that he had asked his mother a week before she died, what gave meaning to her life. And my first reaction was, well, that's a really bold question to ask a woman who's near death. She was blind and she could not hear, and she was in a wheelchair. And it was a valid question. And he said, she replied, I pray for people. When I can't sleep at night, I think of others and their needs, and I pray for them. And I just cherish that story from Doug, because I think we can always do something even when we think we really can't do anything.
Thank you, Mary.
For those that may have nothing to do this afternoon, which I doubt there's many, Midsummer Music is having their concert at the Crest at 4 o'clock. It has a special program with the harpsichord, which is rare to see here in Door County. It's absolutely an amazing program. We heard it last night at Bork London. And I recommend, and a soprano soloist. I recommend you try to find time to go. It's a special program. The Crest is in Egg Harbor. 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Kim.
Hello. Yeah, Buttons and I 2 weeks ago went out to New York City to visit our son Taylor and his family. They just moved into a new place that they bought in Harlem, and it was wonderful. We had a great time. It's the first time we'd seen him in New York in a couple of years, I think. We also caught an off-Broadway production of The Wizard of Oz. Well, truth be told, it was our granddaughter's elementary school production, but it took place right off Broadway.
Good morning, everybody. We have a lot of joys in our life right now. First of all, Betty and I are both very, very happy to be here today, probably for our 15th or 20th of time over the years. We're both from Birch Creek, for those of you that don't know us, and we're just grateful for the last 2 weeks that we spent up here at concerts at Birch Creek. And Betty's been coming 31 years. I've been coming 29. And we're just really fortunate to be here in Door County. And also, I want to just share that I'm really happy to be going home tomorrow, because my first grandchild is due on the 23rd.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. Thank you, Dick. Now, we will have the offertory, and I won't continue, well, I'll read the last part. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. And for our visitors, let your presence be your offering. We will now have a responsive reading, which is number 586 in the back of your hymnals. And your part is in italics. As labor is the common burden of our race, so the effort of some to shift their share of the burden onto the shoulders of others is the great, durable curse of the race. This expresses my idea of democracy. Whatever differs from this, to the extent of the difference, is no democracy. Destroy this spirit, and we have planted the seeds of despotism at our own doors. Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves and cannot long retain it. Why should there not be a patient confidence in the ultimate justice of the people? Is there any better or equal hope in the world? We will now take a moment to silence our busy thoughts and to appreciate our peaceful surroundings. May each one of our thoughts help bring peace to the world.
The reading this morning is from my new book of poems, which is very exciting for me. And this poem came from my exasperation last summer with the red signs that said, "Fight for freedom." And actually, I think in some ways those signs led to my talk today. This particular poem plays on the device of repetition. It's the oldest device of poetry. And so each couplet or two-line stanza contains the word free and the word freedom. And they're in changing contexts. So I'm hoping that they will simply spur thought about freedom. I know people are nervous about poetry, so don't worry if it doesn't all come through. Just enjoy the repetition. Letter to the editor. In my free travels around our county, I see signs that say, "Fight for freedom." And I wonder what it means to be free. For centuries now, we have had freedom from rule by a king who was free to tax us and we have fought for freedom from slavery. We are free to vote for representatives or to make changes in laws regarding freedom, which can make us less free, as when the need for reproductive freedom collides with religion. But wait, we're supposedly free from religious dogma, a freedom built into our Constitution, free as many countries are not, to think and speak our minds with freedom from punishment, but not free to break the law made by representatives. Freedom from them requires free elections, accountability, impeachment. But total freedom, as Berbers in the desert, is not possible in a land of states connected by freeways, electric grids, waterways. Freedom here depends on good government to keep our systems free from harm by bad actors or by states whose freedoms do not match our own. Might we feel more free if we saw that elsewhere people still fight for the freedoms we have? As Thomas Paine said in 1776, in free countries, only the law is king. Let freedom continue to reign. Well, good morning. And I'm really glad to be here with you again. It's great to see so many wonderful friends and to be back in Wisconsin. I want to challenge you today to consider the many dimensions of freedom. And I want to ask you to think about the possibility that we can still use our freedom to preserve and enhance human community. As a poet, I've become increasingly concerned with the ways that words affect emotions and policy decisions. Language is powerful. It frames not only how we see things, but literally what we see. So take freedom, for example. The value of freedom is constant, right? America is quintessentially the land of the free and the home of the brave, both for citizens and for the rest of the world. But the public meaning of the word freedom is changing. In last fall's election, the red signs that I address in my poem did not echo the Declaration of Independence in promising freedom from tyrannical monarchy. As we've seen in the actions of recent months, those signs approved a fight for freedom from diversity, equity, and inclusion. In some cases, they probably signified freedom from any government at all, or even belief in anarchy as the right of the individual to do or say whatever he or she likes, regardless of consequences. So my intent this morning is to draw attention to the power of language and to ask how we, as UUs and allies, might use that power more vigorously on behalf of freedom. So let's start with ourselves. What does freedom mean to you? What did it mean to you as a child? How has that changed over time? For me, freedom was a highly charged word at first in songs like My Country, 'Tis of Thee, that I learned to sing in preschool during World War II. After the war, I experienced the results of freedom in my father's rather quixotic decisions to move every year or two up and down the East Coast in search of an alternative to teaching music in public schools. During our summers on a non-working farm that belonged to our relatives, I experienced freedom as a lack of supervision from working parents and really old great aunts. But I also learned that some restrictions were needed to protect an only child from harm. In grade school, I began to understand that our Constitution stood in opposition to monarchy. But because we were nomads, I didn't learn anything about freedom from other forms of government, such as fascism or communism, until college. In private school, in a class in the Old Testament, I learned about warring identities that resulted in diaspora. And in a New Testament class, I learned that freedom might be a spiritual experience that one could have even in captivity. It was only in the 60s, in the civil rights movement, that I began to understand the promises of our founding documents: freedom from oppression, free speech and assembly, the right to worship as we choose, and the right to protest against our government, privileges that we were all granted, but only some of us were allowed to use. All that became apparent in that movement. In the 70s, as we developed women's studies at the UW, I understood further that I had not been free to become president of the United States, as we were all promised. How American culture, even splintered as it was for me, had nonetheless shaped my choices and limited what I called free will. Still, a year of teaching in a German university clarified that things could have been worse. Only 3% of the professors were women at the time. Freedom for me became being able to make conscious choices among real options that expressed my values and those of the community to which I wanted to belong. But only in retirement have I learned how comparatively free I have been. I could retire to write poetry, explore the world literature by women, and travel to countries I had never expected to see because I had a home, sufficient food, enough savings, health care, transportation, a means of communication, access to continuing education, a sense of purpose, and a caring family. Freedom has conditions in order to exist. If we want freedom, we have to pay attention to those conditions. Now, I don't expect everyone to examine their own history to this degree, but I believe that all of us experience different meanings of this complex value in our lives, and that no one at this stage of human history is completely free to do anything we like at any time we desire. I also know that Words and stories are powerful, and I'm looking everywhere for what might move Americans to work for a different kind of freedom than the one intended by those red signs. As the first 6 months of this new administration have made clear, freedom in the last election meant dismantling government in order to increase private or corporate profits, and thereby to increase power over women, people from southern or eastern quarters of the globe, pretty big swatch of people there, refugees, migrants, naturalized citizens, and finally, it appears, anyone who does not see eye to eye with the current ruler. It's a vision of control of the many by the very small portion of the few. In other words, it's tyranny masquerading as freedom. Freedom has become its opposite in this scenario. Now, this isn't the first time in American history that the most enduring meaning of freedom, freedom from constriction, oppression, tyranny, has been undercut. The Constitution itself, remember, allowed slavery. Southern states fought to secede from the Union in order to maintain the institution of slavery and spread it to the Western states. Although slavery was outlawed by the 13th Amendment after the Civil War, the amendment contained that loophole, remember, for prisoners that allowed it to continue, slavery continue de facto in prisons. The film 13, if any of you have seen that, run into it, presents a really compelling analysis of this ongoing condition of slavery within prisons. So closer to our time, other changes have gained traction. This isn't the first time that we've played with the notion of freedom on a major scale, a public scale. FDR turned away from the concern with tyranny to reinterpret freedom in psychological terms as living without want, without fear. The four freedoms that he proposed, the newly identified freedoms from want and fear, and the two old chestnuts, freedom of expression and freedom of religion, were adopted in the UN Declaration of Human Rights. So that's a major shift in definition or understanding of freedom. And increasingly, in the late 20th century, freedom came to mean relief from what is called inconvenience in law. And this is fascinating to me. I'd like to understand better how it works. But this means abuse and harassment and libel and so on, which is now coded as DEI. Yeah? And it is, of course, to be discarded now completely. So there's been a lot of turmoil over this question of what is freedom. This isn't new, that we would have to reconsider what we meant by freedom, that we might look at red signs or blue signs or whatever that say, fight for freedom, and realize that we have no idea what the people are thinking until we actually look at what it is that they really want to do. So, of course, UUs have long embraced freedom as our fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I love it. I just think it's one of my favorite principles. But just this June, the Unitarian Universalist Association encouraged congregations to focus on the idea again. And they asked us to examine what we need freedom from, how we might exercise freedom with, and what we envision freedom to. The congregation that we joined in Ames became involved in this process, and they discussed freedom from, primarily in terms of, I would say Roosevelt's terms, conquering fear, depression, insecurity, cynicism. It was a very sort of psychologically oriented discussion. Freedom from the things that stop us from acting on behalf of our principles and our values. The idea of freedom with was less familiar, but the group emphasized that no one has to do everything in order to ensure the continuation of freedom. And I like that idea very much, that we can work toward the same goals almost as if we were in relay teams, each person doing whatever he or she finds possible in cooperation with others who are doing the same, have the same goals. And I would say UUFDC has learned to do relays very, very well. So there's been, from our founders, a couple of generations now of relay work and carrying on the process, really, of expressing our principles and values. The process of paying close attention to the prepositions, how odd. I mean, these little funny little words that you think of as, well, what? I mean, they're useful, but they don't seem to carry a lot of meaning all by themselves. It's when you put them with something else that they turn out to be revealing. We were not in Ames for the third Sunday discussion of freedom to or freedom for, but I think that these phrases are probably the most important ones for us to consider today. Pundits have been saying for years that liberals or progressives have failed to provide a vision for real change in the lives of residents who were left behind in the 80s when trickle-down economics began to recreate the Gilded Age. The critique is not entirely fair. Obama's Affordable Care Act made health care newly affordable for millions of Americans, and Biden's Infrastructure Act delivered nearly full employment for the working and middle classes. That's most of us, right? However, in a culture that's always looking for something new, bigger than ordinary life, like the TV reality shows that still gain millions of viewers, we have apparently not yet presented a compelling vision of what we mean by freedom and what we want to do with it. So people say that they don't know what Democrats stand for. And those signs, after all, were all red. I would not like to concede the value of freedom to any one faction within a society. It's simply too important. If freedom is the ability to act on behalf of ourselves and others, what do we as Unitarian Universalists and friends want to do with the freedom that we have? If ours is really the land of the free, what is freedom for? How can we claim it more effectively? At the moment, how can we at least intervene in the current interpretation of freedom as deregulation, warfare against government, white supremacy, or even anarchy? I can't believe myself that human beings evolved to this stage in order to compete for the title of richest man on earth or richest empire in the world. Besides, that's already been done over and over throughout history, too many times. More compelling for me is Abraham Lincoln's goal to realize human government of, by, and for the people, meaning all the people, women, men, the third gender, children, old people, sick people, all skin colors, all levels of ability, all religions, and all political persuasions. If we're looking for something new to inspire people, this is a vision that has not yet been realized in human history. We haven't done it. The Greeks didn't do it. Has not been realized. Both the language and the vision are as new today as they were in 1863. As Lincoln said at the end of his Gettysburg Address, we still do not know if even one country founded on such a principle can survive. So, have we put this case to the American public as a visible goal for the 21st century? And if we haven't, why not? What if we could use our freedom of speech and assembly, and I realize that it's getting more limited by the hour probably, but what if we could use our freedom of speech and assembly to ensure that all human beings, not just so-called whites or the billionaires who can escape in their space capsules, assure that human beings survive long enough to learn to live together peacefully in the earthly environment where we evolved. Instead of fearing differences as if we were still under threat from wild animals, what if we learned from our differences how to create a real commonwealth of all living beings? In Civilization and Its Discontents, Sigmund Freud saw that there's always going to be tension between human individuals and any government or civilization that we establish. Democracy is a case study in resolving this discord because it asks each person to make regular decisions about who will govern. And making good decisions requires discussion based on facts. We don't know yet what problems life in the next century will present. But I can think of no better use of our freedom than to prepare to solve them together in order to ensure that the human species survives. We do know, however, that there are two new conditions for Lincoln's vision to become reality in the 21st century and beyond. The threat of climate change to the elements of air and water. Those are, I think, the really key ones without which we cannot live. And once again, nuclear war. I had thought that that was put aside at the end of the Cold War, but it seems not so. These threats are far more significant than any of those manufactured by MAGA and being managed by ICE. and yet we're not talking about them at all. Without resorting to fear tactics over our survival as a species, how can we turn attention toward the tasks that could ensure human survival? We must not concede the value of freedom to MAGA or to any movement that would restrict it to a few wealthy men and even fewer women. Freedom has been a core value in American life from its beginnings thousands of years ago on this land. Native people fought with each other and later with European settlers for the right to move with the seasons, to hunt, to gather, grow food, make distinctive clothing and dwellings, create art and music, tell stories of the powers that they encountered. But above all, to live in harmony with the land and with the elements of earth, air, fire, and water. This idea of freedom is native to this land. Who is going to defend it? As I said at the end of my poem, let freedom reign. Let it rule, but let it be the kind of freedom that belongs to everyone, and let all voices be heard at the round table where problems among individuals and states may be solved together in the language of kindness, which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. While tyranny may resolve life's problems more quickly than democracy, it regularly leads to war and horrific loss. Democracy of, by, and for the people may take longer, but the results are worth waiting for. Let's at least try to ensure the continuation of human life for the many, not just for the few. I look forward to hearing your ideas about freedom in our discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you, Estella. I think we'll forego the hymn, and so that we can get everything in. No? I'm looking at our music director, and she's saying no. Okay, hymn number 300. It's good we sang that. It's a good one. The closing words are from James 1. Be doers of the word and not merely hearers. Those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing.